Good morning and welcome to the Criminal Justice Commission meeting on the 12th of August. We'll go ahead and get started at approximately 10:05. Britt, could you please do roll call?
Commissioner Brown, Carter, Harris,
Present.
Smith, Vice Chairman Little,
Present.
Chairman Vieira.
Present.
We do not have a quorum.
Thank you. And there is no invocation. Mr. Harris, could you please lead us in the flag salute? If you could please stand and join us.
Repeat with me. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So we're going to start off this morning with a presentation from Deputy Lance Jordan, LA County Sheriff's Department.
Good morning, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for hearing us out today. I'm here to speak about an issue that's popping up all over the country right now, and most people have heard about it. They see it on the news, but not many people know much about it. And what I'm talking about is synthetic drugs. When I talk about synthetic drugs, we're not talking about synthetic drugs like in the 60s where people are manufacturing PCP. Methamphetamine from its offset was illegal to have and possess, which still is. We're talking about synthetic drugs that are manufactured in other countries like Mexico and China and shipped over here via trade as potpourri, bath salts, things that they aren't, fish oil. I handed you out some literature that I printed from the DEA, Drug Enforcement Agency, that gives you something to look at or reference later on if you need to, as far as the facts regarding the drugs. What I'm here to speak about is the alarming growth it's having here in Lancaster. We've had several deaths lately that we can't completely attribute to the drug, but I do know from field deputies and people that respond, there's a growing number of these homeless people that are being found dead. One recently was completely naked in the desert. He was found to be in possession of such drugs. And it's important that I tell you that it's legal to possess such synthetic drugs. It's illegal to sell, but it is legal to possess. And what causes a problem with that is the fact that certain shops, certain head shops, tobacco stores that retail this stuff do it at the back alley. They sell it to these kids, deputies come in contact with these kids, do a legal search of these kids, find the stuff. There's nothing we could do about it. Now, children under the age of 18, 308B is illegal for them to have any tobacco products whatsoever. But it is very prevalent in people over 18 and in our homeless population, including elderly people. It's cheaper than alcohol, has a faster effect, it takes a stronger effect than alcohol, and it's pretty dangerous stuff. Some of the symptoms that deputies have witnessed in the field, myself and actually Mr. Jericho has witnessed itself, is it's becoming stronger in its chemical compound as far as the stimulants with the bath salts or the fake cannabis, which is known as spice. They're starting to show an effect of symptoms that are PCP-like, and if you guys understand what that is, these people become aggressive, they're hallucinating, they're paranoid, and they're becoming dangerous. Just to cite a few cases that I have. In Washington State, salt abuse resulted in the deaths of a 4-year-old boy and both parents and a teen in Minneapolis who died after overdosing a drug referred to as 2-CE, which is a bath salt. A mother in Kentucky who had used bath salts to kill her 2-year-old when she became convinced that he was a demon, but he survived that attack. Spice was then tried. A man under the influence of spice in Hawaii became paranoid and attempted to throw his girlfriend off an 11th floor balcony. In New Orleans, a young man snorted bath salts and then tried to kill himself with a knife while his father stood nearby. He received medical attention for the knife wound, but then succeeded in killing himself the next day. The symptoms that these things cause are as follows: seizures, hallucinations, suicidal tendencies and attempts, homicidal tendencies, delusions, overstimulation, aggression, paranoia, chest pains, heart attacks, and death, and also overheating, which is also a common sign of PCP. What deputies have come across in the field recently, in the past couple of years, we come across people in our public bathrooms. One, for instance, a middle-aged woman lived in a single-family residence, ingested spice by smoking it, and we found her in our El Dorado Park bathroom naked, paranoid, thinking monsters were chasing her. And like I said, I remind you, this stuff is legal to possess at this time in the state of California. And the other problem with the sales part, it is a misdemeanor to sell it. However, what we're finding is the manufacturers of these are staying ahead of the legislature by changing the composition. What they're doing is they're taking natural plants and derivatives, and they're spraying that plant with a chemical to mimic the effects of THC, methamphetamine, cocaine, heroin, and that's what these people are ingesting. So whenever we define it, whenever the state or the country defines what the compound is and makes it illegal, they change that compound to mimic the same effect. That's causing the compound to get worse and worse and worse and causing the symptoms to become far worse than they were just 10 years ago. That said, in April of 2013, Lancaster Station Directed Patrol Unit we were doing routine tobacco inspections at tobacco license locations. The first one we hit, we arrested the man for possession of synthetic stimulants and methamphetamine. He had the largest amount of spice and bath salts, per the DEA, the local DEA, that has ever been recovered in Southern California. And that was in your city at a licensed tobacco shop. Right now, there are 130 licensed tobacco shops in the city of Lancaster, many of which are reputable. They sell legal tobacco, legal cigars, things of that nature. But our concern is the ones that are providing our homeless population, our youth, with the spice, the bath salts, and I gave you a copy of what a package looks like. That's a typical package of spice. As you can see on it, there's a picture of Scooby-Doo, and it's an effort to entice people to purchase it, get younger people to purchase it, and ingest the substance. I will tell you this, studies do show that is just as addictive as methamphetamine, heroin, cocaine, and ETC from there. Very highly addictive, very potent, very hallucinogenic in nature, and that's what we have walking on our streets right now. I'm in contact with field personnel all the time. I'm in contact with people on the streets myself, and we're starting to see a growing trend of more of this stuff on our streets, especially in our homeless population. With that, do you have any questions?
Lance, yeah, a couple. 130 tobacco shops, licensed shops. The one you're particularly referring to, are they still operating a tobacco shop?
That man is on felony probation, and he did receive another business license, which is being remedied this week.
Okay.
We are taking care of that.
So it seems to me that we should have some type of recourse on illegal shops, just like the city's taken a hard look at the alcohol ordinance and everything else. And if this is our main proponent as far as these tobacco shops are the distribution points, I'm assuming.
Yes.
I remember a year or so ago, weren't they talking about taking all these bath salts and everything off shelves and retail operations,
And they are supposed to.
Yeah.
And many of these shops have done so, but I have found in my experience too that they're just taking them off the shelf and putting them behind the counter.
Have we let it be known, and I'm sure we have, that these 130 licensed tobacco shops within the city of Lancaster, I'm assuming,
Yes.
that we're going to take a hard stance on this, or they're going to be, it seems to me that we should be looking at some type of an ordinance that's going to address the situation with tobacco, if this is our number one concern, that these are our distribution points.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Vice Chair, if I might interject here, I'm going to be speaking a little bit later this morning about our proposed revisions to the business license ordinance, and number one on the list of things to discuss this morning are what we're going to do about smoke shops, tobacco shops, bath salts, and the like.
Okay, thank you, Johnson. Thank you. Okay, well then.
I can say one of my collaterals is retail tobacco enforcement, and I try to keep up on it. Every shop that I go to, I make it known that, one, they are not to sell drug paraphernalia. Now, that's
Right.
not to say a marijuana pipe. I'm talking about paraphernalia that's commonly used to inject narcotics. I make it known that I will not tolerate that. I will cite NCs for that. They know that, the ones that I've inspected. And they also know they are not to engage in the sales of that. But there's only one of me, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of shops.
Yeah.
And it's hard to keep up on all that. As far as ordinances go, that'll be between you and the city attorney. I'm here just to tell you what your cops on the streets are seeing and what we're dealing with right now. And if I'm worried that if it's not curbed somehow, we're going to see more issues and more serious crimes occur as a result of
Well,
this
you know,
substance.
it seems like we're just continuing taxing you too. I mean, you can only spread yourself so thin, it seems like,
Yeah.
and, you know.
And I'll tell you this too, one of the report that I wrote for that one shop we hit weighs probably about half a pound. It was an entire truckload of spice and bath salts we took out. This was one guy, one man, an entire truckload, pickup truck bed full of the stuff. We seized it, it was destroyed, but going back to how hard it is to test it, when our lab tried to test the compound to see if it fit in under 11375.5 of the Health Safety Code, they couldn't test it. That's how fast these manufacturers are changing the composition of the chemicals that are in the substance itself. We can't keep up with it. Our labs can't keep up with it. So we draw this manpower. That operation alone for that one tobacco shop that started off as a random inspection, turned into a search warrant, and it took 8 deputies to process that location and about half a day of man hours of your deputy sheriff's time for a case that got that part dismissed. Luckily, we had prostitution going on there. We even had illegal key making going on, so we had a good case against them on other things. But that large seizure of the synthetics was thrown out because we couldn't test it.
And that's constantly changing.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean,
Constantly.
you know, today could be this type of spray, tomorrow could be something else. So
Yes.
they're masking it each time we
Absolutely,
move forward.
sir. Absolutely. They're using different chemical compounds that change it just enough to where it changes at the lab. So it doesn't, like when we take methamphetamine, we have to test it and show to the court that it was tested and it was in fact methamphetamine. Same thing with marijuana. We have to show that the contents of whatever we seized has THC in it. Same thing with the synthetics. When you write a law that's that specific to ban something, we have to test it and prove in court that that's in fact what it was. And that's where the problem occurs, because we can't do that.
Lance, can I interject? This is the whole issue, and part of having the discussion is create a starting point for this discussion, to have something more vague and ambiguous written into the drug schedule, okay? Because it's not even identified that way. And actually, in conversations with Lance and with the captain on this issue, it actually broke the crime lab's machine, okay? So there's issues on this that are going beyond just the aspect of being able to file a case. It's a creative issue that's got to be dealt with even down on the testing level. But again, it needs to be addressed through the narcotics schedule just to be identified for that purpose. And that's part of it. So as Jocelyn's put some things together, we have a strategy as far as dealing with the local shops that are working with the Sheriff's Department and Lance to remedy those issues. But this thing it can be a starting point here, and I know there's a lot of discussion going on nationally. If you just right now even put in bath salts or spice or things, just Google it sometime and just look what you're going to find there. It's shocking what you're seeing.
Question: the amount that you took, was that targeted just for the Antelope Valley, or they had major distribution? In other words, being the largest in Southern California, is that because it's more prevalent here, or is this a distribution center for other places?
Sir, I could say that location was mainly serving Lancaster. It was in an area of Lancaster that is a bit, it was over in the area of Sierra Highway and Avenue J. And they were servicing the neighborhood in that immediate area. And when you think about that was one shop. Half a mile away, there's another one. Quarter mile away, there's another one. And I'm not saying all of them are engaged in this. I'm just trying to give you a picture of what we're dealing with here. And that was that one shop, and I do know it was servicing that neighborhood. There was more than just spice going on. There was prostitution going on at that location. There was other drug sales. It was a very nefarious place, but that was just for the Antelope Valley. That was for Lancaster. I have no indication from that investigation to show that he was shipping that anywhere else. Most of the stuff was in his shop, and we wrote a search warrant to go back to his apartment, and a lot more was at his apartment.
I can say to you that it's more organized, okay? That I believe exactly what Lance has just said, that was targeted for our area exclusively. That's how rampant this issue probably is, or potential for sales. But the group that's operating, like that particular location, there's a group of persons. We arrest that individual. Another person's going to come up that is either like a straw front type person for that, and try and get a business license for that type of operation. So things we can work on from the city side through what Jocelyn will be talking about through conditional use and specific issues as it relates to those type of shops. Those are the things we can remedy on a local basis.
Quick
But it's a
question.
very organized group.
At this time, do we have evidence that it's getting to minors, youth, adolescents, and is that a targeted population, or where?
Sir, I don't have any study to indicate that, but I can tell you what your cops tell me, what I've seen on the streets. It is prevalent amongst our youth. Some of them are choosing, when I've talked to these kids, they're choosing, hey, well, marijuana is illegal. That's bad, but this stuff's legal. It's kind of like cloves back when we were kids. Kids would smoke cloves, things like that. They're looking at the package, they're buying it from a store. It's legal to have, they know that. They research online, they go on YouTube and watch other kids ingest the stuff. And in their mind, it's a lesser evil to drugs. Problem with that is that, like I told you, it factually is just as addictive as methamphetamine, things like that. If you could go online and spend hours researching people that were addicts. Well, there was one man, it took him 9 years to quit. No program worked for him. It was just, he gives his glory to God that he quit, basically. But you go on YouTube, kids videos tape themselves. You could see the symptoms that they show when they ingest this stuff. And you could watch this stuff on video, watch how they act. And now just picture that person on Lancaster Boulevard in front of one of our restaurants. That's what the deputies are going to have to deal with. They hallucinate, they become aggressive, they become very violent, they hurt themselves. And it's one of those things, too. As far as drugs go, as you all know, when we test someone we take a urine analysis, we're looking for a specific drug. If I think this person's on marijuana, if I think this person's been drinking alcohol, we test and screen for that specific thing. There's not many tests to test for this, like I said, because the composition changes. So we have these people that are ending up, we find them deceased in our streets, especially our homeless population. We can only guess as to how or what caused it. All I know is the last 2 or 3, we did find that to be in their possession.
And is this a cheaper substance for an individual to purchase? I mean, is it?
Depending on how much there is, I'm sure the price went up a little bit when we made that seizure back in 2013. But at that time, when there was that much of it, $5.
Okay.
You can go in there and get a $5 packet of it, and the effects last anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour.
That would explain why you have so many homeless people that could afford to get it. It's not very expensive.
It's cheaper than beer. Cheaper than beer. You take the average alcoholic, how much alcohol he has to ingest, the average person, 0.02 an hour for a large beer. You have an alcoholic now that's got a higher tolerance level. You could only imagine how much it costs to how many 24-ounce cans of beer he has to ingest before he's intoxicated. This stuff takes $5 and instant effects.
It's a lot to chew on.
Yes, it is.
And I'll take note, too, the picture I gave you guys, that's just an example of one that I brought in. They all come in colorful packaging. A lot of them have a hip-hop type advertisement on it, something that, catches the eye of younger kids nowadays. Some of them have more of a 60s theme to it, rainbows and peace signs. But they say at the bottom, not for human ingestion. That's what gets them past trade. That's how they're able to bring the stuff in from China and Mexico. It's being shipped in legally and distributed to these shops and sold.
What kind of confiscation are you seeing at the elementary and junior high schools? Are they
That, I don't
finding a
know
lot of it?
my experience that I can get with our school unit and find out. I know for a fact we've had a few calls at the junior high schools where deputies had to respond for a seizure. I can't give you a number on that. My field contacts and what I'm talking about is at our parks, at American Heroes Park, Fifth East and several of our parks where the youth like to congregate. And again, I emphasize that a lot of them think it's legal and it's okay, and it's a lesser evil than doing drugs. So you can only imagine the peer pressure. Hey, it's okay, it's legal. You can only imagine how kids think, the way their minds work, and just think about where that takes them. Mind you, it is addictive, and after you take it a couple times, it's downhill from there. Could be.
And it's being shipped in,
Yes, sir.
which you're saying it's legal to be shipped in,
Yes, sir.
but it's an illegal substance,
It's illegal to sell.
illegal to sell.
It's illegal to sell at a tobacco shop in its form that it is.
So if they
But-
came in theoretically and said, here, make a donation,
It's kind of like
kind of like here's a donation to my cause, and I'll give you a free packet of whatever you want to.
in a way, What I'm saying, what it looks like to me is one hand's not talking to the other.
Right.
You have, Department of Trade that lets shipments come in, and it's coming in as potpourri.
Yeah.
So, okay, there you go. And then it's, of course, in California, it's illegal to sell. That's just in California. I'm not speaking about other states. In California, they'd make it illegal to sell under 11375.5. However, the compound changes, so it's not illegal. So it's coming as potpourri, it's coming as fish oil, it's coming in as bath salts, and we got a lot of it.
Okay. Well, I'm confident this is going to warrant a lot of further conversation. I'm looking forward to hearing from you as well. So any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very enlightening. Public business from the floor, agendized items. Briefly, citizens who would like to address the Criminal Justice Commission on any agendized item may do so when the item is being considered by the commission. You need to complete a speaker card, identify the item you'd like to address, and you're limited to 3 minutes. Having none, we'll move on to the consent calendar, but I would say we need to move this to or postpone this to the next meeting, the 9th, in light of the fact that we don't have a quorum. So moving on to commission staff presentations, updates, and reports. Item number 1, LA County Sheriff's Department crime trend reports.
Good morning. The Crime Commission report for July 2015. The burglary suppression team, they had 10 felony arrests, 3 misdemeanor arrests, 6 parolee probation arrests, 3 felony warrant arrests, 8 misdemeanor warrant arrests, 3 vehicles recovered, 4 Ramey warrants, 6 parolee probation searches. They recovered $18,200 of stolen property and seized $2,500 in stolen property. They solved 10 burglaries in the month of July. The narcotics team, the crew arrested 4 adults for felonies. They recovered 944 marijuana plants or units. They recovered 424.3 methamphetamine powder or grams, and they arrested 9 people off warrants. Their search warrants they served were 10, and they recovered 3 firearms in the month of July. Landcap, 29 felony arrests, 21 misdemeanor arrests, 2 firearms recovered, and they estimated the value of the illegal narcotics seized was $67,767. The comp stat for the city of Lancaster. For July, 74 violent crimes, 314 property crimes, 388 total Part 1 crimes, 97 violent crime arrest, 43 property crime arrest, total arrest of 140. Earns issued, which would be reports, were 1,700. As you can see in July 2015, we're actually higher than last year, as 308 and compared to 412, I believe that is. Most active reporting for the districts, Part 1 crimes, 1137, 53, 26, 45, 1127, 44, 1121, 32, 1132, 29. This is the graph for the hotspot areas for Part 1 crimes. Dark red would be the main areas where it's concentrated, and then going so forth to light to white. For residential burglaries, 1137 had 17, 1121, 13, 1132, 9, 1133, 9, 1127, 9. Another graphical chart where all the spots of the robberies, burglaries occurred. As you can see, it's concentrated Mid-City and over on the east side. Robberies, 1127 had 5, 1132 had 4, and 1137 had 3.
Me.
Yes.
Go back to that map, if you wouldn't mind.
This one?
Yeah. So you said it's still concentrated on the east side?
Yeah, as you see, that main line that goes down, that's the 14 freeway.
Correct.
East
So
of
are the
that-
spots, excuse me, Josh, are the spots on the west side still the spots that have been popping up? Are the same spots? Are they all pretty much the same areas?
I reviewed this with last month.
Right.
And yes.
Okay.
I read that one, right? Yeah. Where the robberies occurring on the actual map, that main line that goes diagonal is Sierra Highway, just to give you a reference. Monthly trends for July 2015. Homicides has gone down. Rapes over a year period, still on the decline. Robberies over a year period, slowly on the incline. Aggravated assaults over a year, still slowly on the incline, just above the median. Burglaries on the incline. Larceny thefts is still on the decline. Grand theft of vehicles over a year period, slowly on the incline, kind of leveling out. Arsons over a year, still on the incline. Part 1 frequencies by reporting district. The dark is concentrated, the dark green is not so much as far as count-wise. Do you guys have it in front of you, or was it not sent in time? Okay. Repeat call locations, 1600 West Avenue J, which is AVH, Allen Valley Hospital. Valley Central Way, Walmart on the east side. Intersection of Division Street and Avenue K. Intersection of 10th Street West and Avenue K. 1301 East Avenue I, which is Friendly Village. And Challenger Way and Avenue K intersection. And that's just locations with 10 calls or more. And this is just for data sources, how the crime analysis puts it together. The reference. And that finishes my presentation.
Just one quick question, Josh. Do you have any kind of data that you would be able to share with us that you can say is a specific reason why the burglaries are a lot higher? I mean, do you guys have anything that indicates what would make it go up like it's been going up?
I personally do not. I would have to give it the burglary suppression team and the robbery suppression team with Sergeant Burgo and see exactly what they think. But at this time, I do not have the information. No, sir.
And I can tell you that there could be a lot of contributing issues to that, and the captain will probably talk about that. But you could have one case where you make an arrest, like you see the significant number of arrests they had as it related to Part 1 crimes over and above occurrence for the week. And you could have an issue where you end up rolling back on numerous burglaries that occurred that are either unreported or you did not have a suspect in custody on. That could increase your numbers. There's lots of things that can indicate that. Also, we've been on a campaign to deal with issues as it relates to thefts from vehicles and things as well. And then, again, our station has the highest rate of proactive activity of the deputies that does generate numbers as well. So, and I'll let Pat go ahead and talk here as it relates to this.
As Mr. Dorico alluded to, there are several different possible factors for an increase in our residential burglaries specifically. Part of it is that many of the persons responsible for those burglaries are juveniles. We've had instances where we've had to arrest the same juveniles half a dozen times. Each time they're back out, they're doing burglaries as soon as they're back out. When there's no preventative effect and they're not held, there's really no motivation for them to stop committing burglaries. Clearly, other things like realignment and Prop 47 may also be having an effect on it, but I think that probably the single largest factor is the juveniles that are committing multiple burglaries and being arrested multiple times. And I can tell you, for instance, our robbery suppression team, even though robberies are on the increase, they've solved over 50% of the cases that have occurred within the city and made over 140 arrests for robbery this year already. But it seems as if it's kind of a revolving door, and we're seeing the same subjects back out and committing the same crimes.
Thank you. Josh, quick question. When we talk about repeat calls at an intersection, is that just general businesses within that area, or what is that?
It's just that intersection for the general businesses around that intersection.
Okay.
That's the most concentrated where the calls are coming from.
All right.
And that was just 10 calls or more.
Okay. Thank you.
And you can see that's some of our focus that we've had with our big program and everything, because those are our call generators. As we look at our business community, and especially in some of those significant intersections where we have a concentration of business, that's typically what we're seeing. So, and again, it's a concern, and we're addressing it through education and working with those local businesses. But that situation is better than having an alarming rate for calls in specific neighborhoods or multifamily housing somewhere.
Right.
So that's something we should probably expect to see versus some of the potential other issues we could have.
Thank you. Okay, from the California Highway Patrol update, Officer Hernandez. Good morning.
There you go. Good morning. Start off with the traffic collisions. This so far year to date, we're up by 24% traffic collisions overall. Our fatal picture, we're down by 27%, which is compared this year to last year, we're down by three fatalities. Our DUI, so far we arrested year to date on 299 DUI arrests, 45 for the month of July. And I'm going to compare the Antelope Valley to the County of LA. So far for the year to date for the County of LA, we've had over 6,000 DUI arrests and 779 arrests just for the month of July. I bring that up just since the fair is coming along in a couple of weeks from now. We are developing a plan to saturating the Antelope Valley again. It's going to last for the entire period of the fair. Last year we were out here for one day, one night, and that one night resulted in 18 DUI arrests with plus 3 additional felonies that came out of that. In addition to that, impaired driving task force being out here, we are going to be having a checkpoint as well one of the days of the fair. The location is has not been determined. Another interest. We've issued over 11,000 citations for the month of year to date, 1,500 for the month of July. But I want to share that from those citations, in addition to those citations, there was 500 people that were assisted by officers out there, whether they were disabled or just needing assistance in one way or another. So far, we've assisted over 3,000 people in addition to the citations. Let's see here. We have opened our application process for recruitment. We're looking to add 600 officers per year, which is what the academy allows us to put through, and that is until further notice.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
District Attorney update.
Good morning.
Morning.
Again, looking at the trends, last month the felony trends have remained constant. In July of 2015, we filed 239 felonies as compared to July of 2014, where we filed 400 felonies for the same month. And again, this isn't just Lancaster. This is the entire Antelope Valley. But the trend again is where we have fewer cases, which is a direct result, in my opinion, of Prop 47. For the total for the year of 2015 of felonies, 1,780, and the same for the year of July 2014, prior to the enactment of the prop, it was 2,317. So we see that ballpark 20%, 25% continued reduction. Misdemeanors, this month we also saw fewer cases filed as far as misdemeanors. 491 complaints issued in July of 2015 as compared to 680 in July of 2014. However, the year-to-date is relatively constant, which is 4,323 for July of 2015, and for July of 2014, it's 4,338. Our felony stats for this month, they're comparable with San Fernando and Van Nuys, who would be our closest branches to the Antelope Valley, going into the San Fernando Valley. So that's all I have, pending any questions.
No. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to public safety update. Mr. Dorico. Ms. Corbett.
I'm going to jump in first if you don't mind. So Lance gave us some information about spice and bath salts. It's really scary. One thing that Lee and I have been discussing as I'm working through proposed revisions to the business license chapters is to try to address some of the problems that are associated with smoke shops, tobacco shops, head shops through the licensing process. Because we have so many that are already here in town, they're essentially grandfathered in to a certain extent, so we can't really go through the planning process with a CUP or what have you. And frankly, sometimes the CUP enforcement tends to be sometimes a little bit unwieldy. I'm thinking if we put in some requirements and some restrictions in the licensing chapter so that on an annual basis we can take a look at the business, the particular operation, the particular business owner, see how things are going. One of the things I'm looking into, and I need to do a little more research on it, and I'd like for you to have some discussion about it and give me some guidance about where you think we might want to go, is prohibiting smoke shops and tobacco shops moving forward so that we have the 130 that we have in the city and we don't allow any more to open.
That was going to be my question. So basically, you're talking about a cap because of the saturation is currently that's within the city.
If we have 130 and we have, 94 square miles,
Exactly.
That's a lot of tobacco shops.
Yeah.
So I would like to put that out there if you guys are interested in me looking into that, bless you. I'd be very interested in exploring that as an option.
I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
I like it.
I'm not sure. I'd have to think on that a little bit. I understand that we're going to make a recommendation that would prohibit or the amount of, but I guess I don't know, I guess you'd have to look at it, and I kind of look at this sometimes when I look at alcohol ordinances and everything else, and looking at everything on a one-to-one basis. I don't smoke, I'm just trying to see if that is the way to look at it. And just,
But my understanding would be not that she's coming back with what you can't, but I guess I'd be looking at basically doing the research of what is the potentiality thereof. Is it even feasible that we could say or we could recommend that there be no more smoke shops around?
Right.
Not necessarily that's what would be done at that point in time, but that may be an option to be considered at some future date, possibly.
I can
Right.
understand it, yeah. I'd see that, yeah.
And I think alternatively, if you do recommend that we build in some of the things that I'm considering and are going to present now, that there's another way we can try to attack this. Specifically, I'm looking to beef up the existing provision for causes for denial or revocation of a license. If you'll just bear with me on, this is what the code currently reads. The city manager shall not have the authority to deny issuance of a business license for any reason other than failure to comply with this chapter or an ordinance of the city. It's entirely vague, and it's too restrictive to my way of thinking. If we know we have a bad actor out there who's been trouble before, for example, this smoke shop guy that Lance was just talking about, he's still in business. We're revoking it this week, but it's unbelievable that that's been allowed to happen. So 2 things that I'm proposing. Number 1, we add a lot of additional grounds for revocation or denial. In addition to that, I'm suggesting, and I'd like your input on this, the authority to impose conditions on a license so that problem types of businesses, such as smoke shops, we can impose certain conditions that allow us a little more oversight when we know the kind of business or the kind of operator tends to be a problem, tends to require a little more law enforcement oversight.
Do we have anything in place now that restricts the location as opposed to, let's say, near a school?
There may be something in the zoning ordinance, and there probably is, although I'd have to go back and look. I'm not sure with respect to smoke shops and tobacco shops. I don't know if that's true, but I'll take a look and let you know.
I mean, if this is a main location they're distributing this, that would be the first thing I'd want to do is get them away from schools.
I'll take a look. I'll report back next meeting. So I would like to get your input on your thoughts, with respect to imposing conditions, beefing up the grounds for denial and revocation. Those are a couple of things I'm really strongly leaning towards if you're in favor of that. Lee and I have also talked about currently taxi, tow, and massage businesses and the drivers or therapists or what have you have to undergo the live scan, the criminal background check every year. I'm leaning towards suggesting maybe we do the same for tobacco shops, maybe we do the same for liquor stores, maybe we do the same for hookah lounges or the kinds of businesses that the Sheriff's Department tells us tend to be problems. I don't know. So any feedback would be very helpful.
What do you think?
I think that's getting kind of dicey. I think once you start that, the question is, where do you stop? If you're going to do that, then what other business can we mandate, or what other business should we mandate if we're going to do it with them? As far as restricting smoke shops getting business licenses and location because we have proven facts of that, I'm in favor of it. But once you start encumbering other types of businesses, that's a slippery slope we can end up in trouble with.
Okay, I respect that. I appreciate your input.
Doesn't ABC right now, as far as liquor, do background checks on applicants? And if I remember right,
yes, they do. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think you can have a liquor license if you have a felony.
Right, and I think you're right. All right, and I'm looking at when you talk about imposing certain ideas. I would think that anything that's going to attract kids, education, school, I guess you're going to end up. I don't know if you could throw churches in there too, but it seems that when we look at ABC laws, we look at things that are surrounding our children and everything else. I guess smoke shops too. I would have an issue that I don't know about limiting them and saying, okay, we're going to have 130, and that's why we're not having more, or we impose certain ramifications on like ABC does and everything else does.
Well, what exactly is a smoke shop? First of all, seriously. I mean, when I think of smoke shop, I think of cigarettes and cigars. Obviously, it's more involved than that. But I mean, how many things can they get at the smoke shop they can't get at a regular store?
Paraphernalia.
Okay, so it's primarily paraphernalia.
Narcotics. There's issues that, and we have other laws to address that. I think what we're getting at, though, let me give you an example. What happens to the city is that if we don't have certain restrictions, and I'll give you an example. Last year, or about a year and a half ago, we dealt with places that were operating gambling. Okay, they were operating as a internet cafe, and then at the same time, they were having a gambling operation. We had several of them. So in our current process, of course, it was handled appropriately. Deputy Jordan handled that in the Sheriff's Department. Their items were seized as well. But in the current process, they bring forward another individual wants to open an internet cafe. Okay, another, as I gave an example of a straw front person, earlier, and then we have no ability based on our current structure to deny them, based on the fact that we had an issue before on our staff. So we're trying to implement something through our business license procedurally that have exclusions for certain businesses, that there's another step, okay? And quite frankly, the way that Jocelyn and I have been handling that now is when we have this type of business, we're calling the potential business owner in, and having a one-on-one with them, conversation. And really, it's kind of just a blanket evaluation on where they're coming from, where certain funding, and this is all voluntary on their part, so they don't have to come. And then the ones that, are very straightforward and everything, we kind of evaluate that based on that. This is putting a structure in place that already exists for certain items we have. Okay, and it's just extending it to other businesses that are historically becoming a resource drain. And honestly, no joke, a resource drain. Some of these folks, okay, that are allowing a proliferation of criminal activity or providing for that, and again, we can deal with them in different ways, but there's all kinds of issues related to that. But it's much easier, and I'm going to put it in terms that everyone can understand. It's a lot easier to deny someone on the front than revocation down the road. Okay, we have to establish a whole lot more on the backside that requires a significant amount of staff time, a hearing officer, an informal process, issues with potential case filings and things down with the district attorney and everything that could be handled on the front side just by a simple evaluation of the individuals that are going to be involved and what's their history.
And if we're allowed to impose certain conditions, even if we don't have grounds to deny, because we are a business-friendly city, we do want to encourage people to open up businesses here. It's a great idea. It's a wonderful thing. But if we historically know that we have trouble with internet cafes or with smoke shops, tobacco shops, smoke shop is, I think of them like as a head shop. I don't know. I'm with you. I don't know what the definition is. It's just a mishmash of stuff that has a lot of dangerous paraphernalia in it as far as I'm concerned. So if we don't deny them, and if that's the path we want to go, I think that's perfectly fine. But I would then strongly encourage you to consider whether it's appropriate for us to be able to impose certain conditions so we can keep a little bit better oversight over those kinds of businesses. I'm not trying to, and if I might, the example Lance was talking about, the smoke shop that we're dealing with this week, there's currently nothing in the code that really would have allowed us to not renew his license. As weird as that sounds, it's crazy. And he didn't have to go through a criminal background check when he submitted his renewal application, so finance had no idea that this guy is a criminal. So something's got to get fixed in there. Somewhere in there, there's a break, and that we do want to definitely fix.
I think too, like Mr. Dorico alluded to, is that a lot of these shops have stickers, paraphernalia, and other things that you just it goes back to the days of the magazines being on the shelf and plain sight of anybody can pick up and look at. It's disturbing. It seems disturbing. So there's a lot of things in tobacco shops that maybe could be restricted. I don't know. That's something to look at. There's a lot of items in there that just doesn't make sense to me.
We'll keep doing some more brainstorming. What I'm hoping to do is come back next meeting with a rough draft of the ordinance and then you can give me your specific feedback.
I would specifically like to see what the current policy or that we currently have, but then also whether you put in some red lining or whatever with regards to what some thoughts may be, not necessarily to deny, but in light of the fact that we have this issue that's out there, what can we consider to do in an effort to curtail some of the activity that's going on? Build a rationale for that as well, and options that we can consider to bring that down.
I can absolutely do that. I'll bring a redlined copy so you can see the current and what we're proposing, and I'll have a couple of different versions with if you want to condition licenses, if you want to deny, if you want to prohibit things altogether. So you have some options you can look at. I'll make sure that Britt gets those drafts to you in advance of the September meeting so you have time to review them so we can have a good, well-informed discussion at the meeting.
Do you know of any other cities that are going through this at this time that may have some of those things in place?
I don't know of any specifically, but I'll definitely do some further research into that. I've looked into other cities with respect to some of the conditional impositions I'm thinking of, but I haven't looked specific to smoke shops. Lee might have some more information about that, and we can get back together and brainstorm on that as well.
Is it also too, Johnson, is it something, and this may be something that you address way down the line, or when it becomes effective, is looking at something that if a certain proposition passes and all cities have to address medical marijuana, is this something that you would foresee down the line that to write into some type of policy that would say, we're taking a hard line looking at that, and we're going to institute that into a smoke shop? I don't know.
I don't know either. And Lee actually brought AB 266, which is the medical marijuana, the marijuana bill that seems most likely to pass. So maybe he can discuss that a little bit further. But a lot of this we're playing catch up, obviously, and a lot of it we just want to clean up our existing ordinance and make that a little bit tighter. So we're sort of attacking it on all fronts.
Another just thought when I was listening to the deputy speaker earlier with regards to the fact that it's not illegal because the substances or the chemicals aren't illegal. Could there be anything that speaks to, though at this point it's illegal, but if it's used or can be used to create an illegal substance, then you cannot sell it in certain locations or something along those lines?
I'm exploring whether I can write in something that sort of encompasses synthetic anything so that we're not talking about specific compounds, but then you also have to address the herbal thing or things that are sold as supplements. So I'm making this stuff up as I go along, quite frankly, but I'm thinking things that haven't been approved by FDA, things that haven't been approved by UC, those kinds of things, so that we're encompassing the materials that they're selling, regardless of whether they're selling them as not to be ingested or otherwise.
So, just on that tone, because there's actually a section in the Health and Safety Code, it's called an in lieu of section, and that's actually where California's coming from here. They're selling a substance that is in lieu of the actual narcotic. So that's why it's illegal to sell it. Because in the old days, in the rock cocaine days, the crack days, folks used to go white candle wax and poke little air holes in it and everything and sell it as rock cocaine. So there's actually a felony section that exists for that in lieu of section. So that's how that's come about. Some of the things we're talking about is trying to navigate some of the loopholes that are within some of these sections, statutory sections, that still give us the ability to regulate what some of these things that are occurring. This particular case that Lance talked about, it went beyond just the spice and Vicodin and illegal cigarettes and all kinds of things that were going on in this location, which is more common that we see in these smoke shops. So even beyond the narcotic issue or paraphernalia issue, there's things with the taxation issues on cigarettes, all kinds of things that are also attributed to that.
It seems to me like when you talk about synthetic and herbal, you're talking about two different avenues that you could go down. And synthetic, you're making it, you're using it, and you're producing it. Herbal, somebody can stand up at a podium and say, well, wait a minute, I grew this. It just seems like, boy, that's a tough one, Jocelyn. I hear you.
Really wrestling with this one.
I can imagine.
Seriously. So.
Unbelievable.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We're at the point where we have public business from the floor, non-agendized item, and I do have one. I'm sorry? You still on, Lee?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
But it's okay.
I should have known.
All right, you guys are sitting here for I get that a lot. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right, just a couple things I want to cover. Last Thursday night, we had our public safety fair downtown. Jennifer, put your hand up. Great job. Jennifer Prescaro put that together with the support of the staff. I got to tell you, that thing's getting bigger every year, and along with our Thursday night farmers market, we had a huge turnout. And I want to thank Gil, and I want to thank Pat, and I want to thank all the agencies that showed up in the fire department to come out there. We had a lot of booths. Every booth was full. We filled the street from Lancaster Boulevard on Ehrlich all the way down to the fire station. It was dynamite. A lot of folks came out. It was an excellent, excellent, excellent night. So that was a huge positive for us. And so I'm happy that the community is actually participating to a point and getting to know those agencies that are out there and some of those service providers. We had our kicking off of our Antelope Valley Education Alliance again this week. We've got our folks here that are over at Antelope Valley High School. We've done some reorganization with that, with Brenda Gamlowski here working with them and working with my son Brett at the school, and some things we've identified through Dr. Vieira and things we want to address this year and focus on in our program, with the idea that getting these kids back in class. And so the more kids we get back in class, we're going to have a direct impact on that daytime burglary rate, which we've seen in that reporting district around Antelope Valley High School. Saw some results from that last year. And so we're going to be working closely with the school district and with those things to make sure that we're compliant with the Ed Code and the SARB and SART committees and all those things that operate. So it was a learning experience last year. Now this year you're going to hold our feet to the fire for results, okay, and we're going to have results. Homeless encampments, Anthony Perez. Anthony's back there. Anthony's taking the lead. Scott O'Connor's supporting and helping Anthony, but Anthony's doing a heck of a job dealing with some of our homeless issues here. We've had some real big issues with little tent groups and impacts on businesses. Anthony's been working closely with the advocacy groups as well as our public works people have been a huge support in this and in getting folks put in a place that's more conducive to their situation, right, and getting them to services and that. And he's done a really good job with that. And we'll do a presentation at some point to give you some before and afters of some of these locations that are pretty significant. And I think, especially as it relates next to the Metrolink, from Avenue I all the way down to Avenue K.
Let me comment on that too. Anthony has done a phenomenal job. Yeah, phenomenal job. And we had some property over there on the Avenue I corridor, and he came in and took care of it, and professionally, incredible job. And it was a real mess over there. So,
but Jeff, that is a perfect example of a cooperative property owner, working with individuals that have that contact and getting together on how to resolve the issue. And trust me, that's not always the case. Jocelyn and I deal with a lot of issues daily of uncooperative absentee property owners and things as well that are issues.
Yeah, he was so professional. And Anthony, I want to thank you. It was an incredible job what you did, so thank you.
Okay, I want to thank Rob Paris, and we're really progressing through our teen court process. It's pretty exciting what's going on, working with the Department of Probation and the Judiciary with Judge Wesley and the expansion, and Brianna's help working with us. And we're going to move more of our community youth court into that teen court model and with a tiered approach to it. So as we're talking earlier and as Pat talked about with juveniles, and really probably what we should do at presentation, Pat, is what goes on with the Christberg scale and what level of a juvenile has to commit a crime before they're even detained. Okay, there's all kinds of things that attribute to this thing, and I think that's what Pat was talking about, how the system works, and after 7 hours, boom, they're back out there. Well, I think what we're looking at is developing a model that has a tiered approach for different, how egregious a violation is, number of violations and things that we actually have that restorative justice model in place. So we're working very closely with our local judiciary, with Denise McLaughlin Bennett and Judge Wesley, and again with the bar and with Rob's support, and putting a program together. I think that'll be really good. Then the next step is how do we expand that into other schools? Okay, we operate a teen court here. We operate a teen court at Antelope Valley High School. I'd like to see us work with Dr. Vieira and the school board to expand that into all the schools. And I got to tell you, it's kind of fun to watch the kids through jury training and the kids that are involved. Trust me, you don't want to be in front of those kids and be in trouble. And Judge Wesley's even expanded that down in some of the schools he's with downtown to parental responsibility as well. So those are discussions we're having right now, is how to impact that parental responsibility aspect of that. And we're going to be working with Mr. Franklin's office and things on what would be an appropriate process for that. Okay, right now, fortunately for us, we have a dedicated person here at the city that works through marketing and along with our communications folks upstairs. So we have a real effort going on now as it relates to public safety and public service announcements. Right now, we work closely with Pat's folks and with Josh to put a program out together that came out of actually the Detective Bureau at the station, at Cinemark. So if you go to a movie right now, you're going to see an ad up there with the Sheriff's Department, the city's logo, talking about issues we're having as it relates to crime in our community and giving people a heads up on what they should do. We're going to be expanding that into issues we have with traffic safety right now, because that's a big issue on the forefront for us right now that we'll be identifying and working closely with the Traffic Services Division of the Sheriff's Department and the California Highway Patrol. But we're going to be doing more of that. And honestly, it's nothing I ever thought about. The individual, it's Julie Sikora that works out of Rhonda Perez's office in Parks. She's been a great help in putting this together. Josh has been contributing things. But we're going to look at a monthly theme that we're going to put out there. So if there's things that come to light, you as commissioners or the public brings to you, bring those to us so we can address those. We're actually doing radio. We're doing all kinds of things now. So I think it's good that we get that message out in that neighborhood outreach model. That's it. That's what I got.
Thank you, Lee. And now we'll go ahead and move on to public business from the floor, non-agendized items. And I do have one speaker card, Mr. David Paul.
Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair, and Commissioners, good morning. I came here today to talk about the narrative around law enforcement, and this stuff in Ferguson has got me thinking about what to do. And Mr. DeRico, that was excellent what you just said, because that's what you're doing. You're changing the narrative. You're putting out information for people to understand. And I would like to see more of a pushback for people to believe that Officer Darren Wilson just didn't defend himself against a person who was trying to hurt him. I mean, why do people still think that there was anything other than what happened? That kind of bothers me. I was talking to my friend Archie Moore out in the lobby about the eye in the sky. And when I watched the news coverage of that young man in Texas who was shot to death by law enforcement at that car dealer, it was clear when he tripped over the curb that he was impaired on something like PCP or bath salts. And if the officers had real-time knowledge and could see that, they could have determined much better how to deal with this individual, because he was impaired, and that needs to be taken into consideration. Non-lethal means of takedown. All these things are in there. So, I love the law, and I love that people are sworn to uphold the law. Sometimes the law needs fixing. That's what we're doing here. And the target keeps moving, and that's why I have such appreciation for what we do here. We just respond. I thought about this situation. I read this story one time about Abraham Lincoln when he rode the circuit in southern Illinois, and he had a woman client who had finally killed her husband, who had beat her for 30 years. And he took her into a side room. She said, what will I do? They were going to, whatever they do. And he opened the window, and he told her, Kentucky is nice this time of year. And she went out the window, and sometimes justice is administered in strange ways. I went to a meeting in Palmdale a year and a half ago about these bath salts. I know the U.S. military, particularly the Navy, has a huge problem with these things. So it's the narrative. And when we talk about what to do, this despair that is rampant has to be addressed. So, I have said, and I had Xavier Flores there at that meeting, that I would rather kids smoke marijuana than bath salts. That sounds crazy to some people, but I would prefer that. And there needs to be some readjustment about how we think about these things, because we're in trouble. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. As observed a little bit earlier, we have Mr. Rick Cook here from Senator Runner's office. Anything you'd like to share out of Senator Runner's office today?
Well, the senator has a bill called Senate Constitution
excuse me, Rick, maybe you should come up to the podium. Yeah, or get to a mic, so.
This one works there if you want to see her.
No, I'll go up to the podium. I feel like Rex does it to me all the time, so it's okay. The senator does have a bill called Senate Constitutional Amendment Number 8, which the City Council voted on previously to support, which would increase the County Board of Supervisors to 7, which would help local entities like ourselves in the City of Lancaster to be able to govern better. So that's a big thing. As you know, they're on vacation. They return August 17th, and they'll have a multitude of bills to go through. So that's one of them that we hopefully will get passed and run right through. AB 266, which is not the senator's bill, and I have to put a little caveat with that, is that she hasn't voiced an opinion on the medical cannabis bill, so it's not our bill. I wish Russ Williams was here from Lackey's office, as Lackey is, Assemblyman Lackey is one of the authors on the bill. There was a couple things, and I was reading this morning because it came up last night at a city council meeting. So I studied the bill a little bit, and this bill would require, before a business is granted a state license, local jurisdiction will have to regulate the commercial cannabis activity. The bill will provide provisional licensure to engage in commercial cannabis activity. So it actually will give the city ability to regulate where those local jurisdictions, or if the city wants to allow cannabis to be sold in the City of Lancaster. There's also another provision on it. This I thought was really interesting. Existing law exempts qualified patients, persons with valid identification cards, and the designated primary caregivers of quality patients and persons with identification cards from certain crimes, including possession of concentrated cannabis, marijuana, cultivation, and possession of marijuana for sale. This bill, after 180 days after, and if the governor will sign it into effect, will repeal those provisions. So that's something you'll be able to look at also. And this bill would also require the Department of California Highway Patrol to establish protocols to determine whether a driver is operating a vehicle under the influence of cannabis, which right now you cannot do, correct? So this bill does have some extra little tightness to it if AB 266 does pass. It's in the Senate right now. It's in the Appropriations Committee. Once it passes that, it'll be read a third time. Since there are amendments to the bill, it'll go back to the Assembly. The Assembly will more likely approve it, then it'll go to the governor's office. So I don't see much being done with this really quick, but it'll probably happen at this next session between August 17th and September 11th. So you might want to keep an eye on that bill. I can't answer any questions to this because I'm not the author of it, but I wanted to present it to you as a Criminal Justice Commission.
Thank you very much. Yes, Mr.
What is the senator doing in regards to the synthetic drug problem?
I don't know, Marvin. I'll ask her.
Can you sit down with Lance and Lee and get the information on it and ask her if she would submit a bill for us that would fix this problem?
Yeah, no problem whatsoever. Anytime you want to call, set something up. We're real close. We're just down the street, so. Okay.
That's not a criminal.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any commissioner comments?
No.
Okay. Then this meeting stands adjourned at approximately 11:15, and we'll reconvene on the 9th of September, 10 a.m. Thank you.